All right, everybody, welcome to Game 1 of Small Boat Navy versus Sharp Shooters. For the Small Boat Navy side on Warriors Path, we are looking at Lexington, Alabama, Edinburgh, Chapayev, Fyodor, Bagration, Kid, and Cossack. Raptor, what's Sharpshooters bringing to the table?
Indeed, from the south spawn, sharpshooters fronting themselves with a Cossack and an Akizuki backed up by a Mainz and an Amalfi and a Baltimore. And then all the way at the back, we've got a North Carolina and an Alabama. I am very interested to see how the carrier versus non-carrier plays out, Zath. We've already seen one of these today. I'm curious to see if this one goes in the same direction or takes a different tack.
Will be indeed interesting, as it looks like Small Boat Navy is choosing to keep their two destroyers together. Their Kid and their Cossack are heading towards A cap. They're keeping Alabama and Bagration towards B as looks like kind of a hold force.
I really like the strategic deployment that SBN is taking here early, Zath. Cossack is one of the best cap contesting destroyers you can field at tier 8, right? She has incredibly low stealth, she has very, very good guns, and she has those little quick British smokes that are kind of almost work like get out of jail free cards if used in the right situations. Then they're backing her up with a Kid, which is arguably one of the most survivable, best anti-aircraft destroyers at tier 8. Obviously, they didn't realize their opponents were not going to take a carrier, but having a Kid and a Cossack pairing is really, really nasty. And then, of course, they've plugged 2 radars onto this flank in a Chapayev, and, well, I assume Ballistics' Edinburgh is radar. We'll find out, but I assume that it is.
Right. In competitive modes, you typically would opt for radar in that. So we did just see, while you were talking about that, we saw a carrier strike come in on, I believe that was Das Viking's Akizuki. You guys were able to see the impact of the rocket mechanic change. Viking pretty much just, I think, lazily listed to the left, and he was fine.
Or lack of impact, you mean? Pretty much there was no impact of those rockets, more or less.
Yep. Now, there's the Bagration firing off. I wanted to talk about that. She's got 180mm guns with pretty good AP characteristics, also a heal. So those are the main reasons you bring a Bagration. I like the idea of setting it up as a kiting cruiser, as somebody that says, if you want this cap, you have to come through me.
I agree. And one of the other things one of the most underrated aspects of Bagration that a lot of people forget about is she has an incredibly potent AA suite for tier 8. When you dig into the numbers of that suite, she does get defensive fire. You can really do a lot of good things with her AA suite if you position it correctly.
Right. Unfortunately, that doesn't matter in this game, but hey.
It doesn't matter in this game, but they didn't know that, right? The team's ready blind. They didn't know the opposing team wasn't going to take a carrier. These guys probably came loaded for bear to deal with planes, and now they don't have to. So a bit of a change there. We're seeing the Cossack Kid pairing picking up A early as they're rotating the Kid over towards the 2 line to provide some smoke for Ballistics' Edinburgh. As even Aragorn's Cossack has backed out of the cap, they're putting a lot of fire down on Aldari's Baltimore, trying to push him back. And BC Boy's Chapayev, also the recipient of quite a bit of fire on the north end of the A cap. Chapayev, of course, not the sturdiest tier 8 cruiser.
That's correct, and you can see he's coming under, so Maple Chan's mines, we got a brilliant shot of that coming up right now. Just going to continue pounding. So it just comes down to which cruiser is going to lose in this fight first, right? Is it going to be the Baltimore or is it going to be the Chapayev?
Well, I think it's going to come down to vision, right? In the sense of they can still see Beastie as long as they can continue to see the Chapayev. It's obvious the mines is going to keep putting shots into him, and Aldari's hull is just better fixed for it. Alabama shots coming in, and there it was.
Oh,
there
brilliant.
It was.
What a hit.
A cross map shot from the Alabama at just under 20 kilometers. You're seeing the impact there of taking the Alabama versus the Massachusetts. That is a shot that is literally out of the Massachusetts' range.
We saw that. We just saw that replay hit. Boom. Yep. I love hitting cruisers in that spot when I play clan battles.
Indeed. Now, Aldari's Baltimore on the south end of the cap. For sharpshooters, I mean, he's alive, but it's a very narrow thing. He's only got about 6,000 HP down there. They probably got to find a way to pull him out and get him some better cover.
Well, he took a torpedo salvo from the Lexington, and you can see Lexington's bringing some planes back. He just dropped some friendlies over the Cossack. And now he's going to... They're HE, right? Yes.
Yeah, these are Lexington's bombs are high explosive, but I mean they can still do nasty enough things to this Baltimore. He's got to land probably at least 2 of them. He does get 4 into the 4 down, puts a couple down, he gets the fire. That fire will probably end Aldari's game. We'll see if he can manage it.
Yep.
Nope, the Edinburgh takes care of it before that.
Very nice.
5.5 minutes
Carolina.
Go ahead.
North Carolina pushed up a little bit to try to provide some anti-air support, but it was too little, too late. And now he might be the surrounded one.
Maybe. I like this North Carolina position though, Zath, right? You know, we're 6 minutes into this game, and you know, Small Boat Navy has a cap lead. Both teams down a ship, but it still feels like the double battleship is still very viable at the moment, especially the way that CEO is kind of pushing in here.
Absolutely. So Ballistics just got whacked a bit by Seojan's North Carolina, but his North Carolina got whacked by the Alabama Spades. Yeah, so like that's what I was talking about. Like that's a somewhat precarious position because he's forced to give a lot of side here in order to, you know, try to make something happen. And we just saw that HE bomb strike just terrorized that deck. I don't know what else to say about that.
No, that was like 10 or 12,000 hit from the Lexington HE bombs there. Now they're rotating Das Viking over. I think they're going to try and smoke up Seoten here in the cap and just hopefully try to keep him on the board. That's what I think. No, I'm not sure what Das is doing actually. That's what I'd be doing in their shoes.
The only problem with that, of course, is then he's going through a torpedo lane that's between the Cossack and the North Carolina. And
torpedoes are going to go by before he gets there, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think the Seoten's going to go out before that happens. He's
Absolutely.
Going to burn down. He does get the Edinburgh.
What a shot!
Trade. It is a trade. Nice shot.
Yeah. So now you're down to parity with battleships, 1-on-1.
So we're going to see Zath, you know, one of the things we talk about in randoms when we talk to players about the impact of carriers in random battles is the longer the game goes, the more impact the carrier has the potential to have.
Right.
And the carriers, you know, the Lexington has already had a pretty solid impact this game. He's about to put some torpedoes into Das Viking.
Just going to mention
at least
that.
One? Yep. Oof, that hurts. That
hurts.
hurts.
This might take him out right here.
It is. He's going to go down.
That's it. Done.
Wow. Momo Show having a great game in Lexington.
Yeah, no, that was a flood. So
yes,
Das Viking had his DCP was down. Ouch.
Yep. Now it's not before Sharpshooters does pick up the A cap, but they are upside down about 200-ish points here, upside down on ships. 8 minutes gone here in game 1.
Now look at this over on the 7 line as Sharpshooters has pushed up their Bama and Amalfi. I don't like the Amalfi spot right there. The Bama makes sense. I'd like to see the Amalfi maybe middle or someplace where it's not just going to get hammered. He's forced to sit there because of the Bama's position. He's got to hide behind that island.
Yeah,
but Flatulent Fox is really low.
Yeah, they've turned Spades' Alabama back around. He's going to go defend B. As now the Kid Cossack pair is trying to break back into the A-cap against BB Marine's lone Cossack on the backside of this island on the other side of A. He does have help nearby in the form of Maple Chan's mines, but it's going to be really interesting to see if he can spot and live long enough for this to matter. There goes the mines and guns popping off.
Oh, big hit there on Marine from the carrier.
Huge hit on Marine. He's trying to duck into the Aki smoke that's literally evaporating in front of him, Zaf. He's going out. They're going to get him.
Yeah.
No,
he's going
to pop his own smoke, but it's too late. Too late.
There it goes.
Oh, goodness.
Now, meanwhile, on the other side of things, the Amalfi took a decent chunk from the Alabama and is now within. I mean, he's just sitting there bow on. He's in trouble. I'm surprised he hasn't made Inky yet to try to run away.
Yeah, I was gonna say his bow armor can't handle 16-inch shells. That's not a long-term engagement he's got to be excited about.
No. And it looked like he's also firing AP, and it's hitting the belt instead of the superstructure at that.
Halfway mark of the match, and Sharpshooters is on the back foot for sure, down 2 ships, trying to find a way to stay in this game. Maple Chan's mines looks like he's gonna get into the A cap over here on the 3 line. He's got
Yep.
2 destroyers in front of him. Hopefully he has Hydro? I don't know. Hipperhull's AA is good enough. I could see them making a case for defensive fire. Looks like he's going to wander into one of these torpedoes.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any hydro pings coming out from the ship.
I'm not seeing it either. He's going to take a torp midships. First damage of the game that he has taken.
Yep. He's desperately trying to help his team kill that Alabama.
But I don't think they can kill this Alabama. I don't think they have the position or the firepower to do it.
Rune of 1 is about to go down here. I think he's going to take a torpedo strike. Yep, but that didn't kill him.
He does manage to survive. He gets his starboard torpedoes downrange on Spades' Alabama. He's going to take at least one of these, if not 2. Just the one.
Just the one. Of course, South Dakota class has pretty good torpedo belt protection.
Indeed.
As Rune of now is now exposed, his Inky has expired.
Well, that should be his death here momentarily.
Yeah, we're about to watch the kill shot.
Yeah, must be the rocket's going to get him. Yep.
There it is.
Wow. We're watching a lesson in why teams take a carrier in this format, because you just can't. A battleship is as powerful and as power projection as a battleship is. Nothing can that power projection of a carrier, right? That tactical and strategic flexibility of being able to be where you want to be on the board, not where your ship hull has pushed you, is unmatched. Absolutely unmatched.
There it is.
A well-played game by both teams, but game 1 does go to SBN here on Warriors Path, as we'll be going on to game 2 in a moment. That'll be on to Sleeping Giant. Now, let's talk for a minute, Zath, as we kind of look at some replay footage of this game. I want to throw this. Put yourself in the sharpshooter's locker room right now. Okay. Do you take a carrier in game 2? Straight up.
Yes.
Yes or no? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I don't. Unfortunately, with Tier 8, I think it's too difficult. We've seen teams try to take a non-carrier 2 battleship and be aggressive and put, and it's not materializing. I think the ships are too slow. The maps may be too big to make that kind of strategy work.
Okay. We know that Kaga is on the ban list, so you're not going to see one of those in this match. Mm-hmm. If you had to pick a carrier, what would your choice be to add a carrier into this lineup?
I mean, Lexington is always going to be a strong choice. The HE dive bombers are just do terrible things to pretty much any class they run into. The rockets are okay. The torpedoes are fantastic, and of course, when you put Ovechkin in, you get the extra heal or extra survivability expert perk. So I would definitely probably go with the Lexington. You could make an argument for Enterprise, but I think Lexington is far better at this point.
Indeed. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see if Sharpshooters agrees with us, Zath. For the moment, let's head back to the studio.
Well played by SBN in taking the first map of this best of 3. And let's take a look at how they actually managed to win this, because we did see a lot of very interesting different actions. And Duke, how do you feel about the difference in setup they had with like 2 battleships versus 1 battleship in CV? Do you think that was the deciding factor, or were there other factors actually playing into this?
You know what, I don't, and it may be a hot take here, but I really think ISSB's double BB strat was very, very well thought out, and I think they did an excellent job executing it. Just a few minor mistakes, I think, are really what caught them that game. If you look at the progression of the game, it was very close for a very long period of time. And ISSB did make use of that battleship pressure early on, that Alabama getting a pick on Chapayev, and then they did push the North Carolina into the cap and were able to get the Edinburgh. Those are the kind of things that you need to make happen with, double battleship play like that, and they made it happen. They did it really, really well. I think really what cost them that game was just a little bit of lack of coordination. And, that's something that takes a lot of time to build, and these teams don't have that much time to build up. But a slightly better coordinated push onto the A-cap, right? The battleship could have waited a little bit longer for the Akizuki, or the Akizuki maybe could have rotated earlier. And then after the battleship went down, he went down with a trade on the Edinburgh, which was actually really, really good. And they could have still won that, I think, but the Akizuki, I think, got a little bit too aggressive in taking on that gunfight with those DDs. If he had waited for his friendly DD and his mains to come around, excuse me, mines, I'm a foreigner.
Don't worry about it.
If he had waited for them to get into closer positions to where they could support him better, they absolutely would have won that flank. And the pressure from the Alabama and Amalfi on the B cap would have prevented SBN from actually having any answer. So honestly, really, really well played from ISSB. That was really impressive to watch, and I'm happy to see people executing a battleship strategy like that, and really, honestly, doing it so well.
Yeah, absolutely, because I felt exactly the same thing. For me, both teams had different strategies, both employed them in a very, very decent way. And I think what made the difference is, as you said, like how the two DDs of ISSB actually interacted with the A cap. Being a little bit too aggressive, for example, being in the middle of the cap. That means if you're spotted, it's very hard to get out of there. And that's just something you have to play with, right? If you play against a team with an aircraft carrier, you know that you will be, like your main disadvantage is going to be spotting. Like your DDs are going to be spotted in positions where it's not about radar, it's just the planes are going to be there. So you have to be extra careful where you're going to get spotted so that you don't take too much damage during that period of time. Carriers are now having a much harder time, for example, deploying their attack aircraft, right? In terms of damaging, like actually applying the damage to the DDs, but you always have to watch out for this. And I think it was these small things like the positioning of the Akizuki or the positioning of the Amalfi that kind of got them stuck in places where they kind of had the map, and then they were a little bit too aggressive, but that's one of the most tricky things as a team to be able to learn is at what point you need to be aggressive and at what point you kind of have to fall back without handing the game to the enemy, and where to make these very precise movements and being able to coordinate the entire team together at the same time. It's really, really difficult. It looks super easy, like sitting here is like, you should have done this, you should have done that. From my point of view here, and hindsight is always 20/20. Right. But it's very fantastic to see. But it promises a very, very decent match for the next one. But before we do this, we're actually going to show you a little video and dive deeper into the topic of nostalgia in gaming, especially with the context of being deployed. So I'll give you the video and then we'll talk about the next match. Or not?
Up, down, up, down.
Up, down, left, right, start.
BA select start.
Is it
BA select start, that's what it was.
Every gamer has lasting memories of being a kid and finally getting that game you've been waiting for all year, or powering up the new system that you mowed lawns all summer to finally be able to afford. For veteran gamers, some of their memories can be very different, like playing against your buddy while anxiously waiting to go on patrol, or passing time in the barracks before it's your turn to stand watch. For them, gaming was much more than just a way to have fun.
When you're in Iraq and all you can see is desert around you and the ramshackle buildings, you can't necessarily get away from that, especially when you have sandbags on your windows. You remember like, oh yeah, we get mortared every once in a while. You want to forget about it, you want to pretend it doesn't happen. But when you're woken up in the middle of the night, you hear a mortar coming in and you're wondering if anybody got hurt. It's impossible. It's an impossible job to do. But when it came to gaming, I was able to pretend for a little bit that I was somewhere else.
You need something to allow you to unplug and kind of push all those worries and concerns aside. So that's gaming.
For me, it was perhaps tied into my childhood, that nostalgia factor that really helped me to be like, yes, I remember now. Like, let's go at this. I think it just helped me so much to have that reprieve, that break.
Where'd you go? Through its partnerships with Wounded Warrior Project and supporting programs that benefit veterans, Verizon is committed to giving more to those who give the most. Check out Verizon.com/military to see why Verizon is ranked the most military-friendly company.
And welcome back. Now, we do actually have a fantastic tool that you might remember from the last King of the Sea broadcast, which is our replay tool for the minimap. You can actually do this to your own replays. If you head, for example, to the official Discord, you can just upload your personal replay and take a look at this. And we forwarded here to a point where you can actually see the North Carolina deploying into the cap. And you want to talk about this?
Yeah, sure. So I'd like to point out very quickly, if you were paying close attention at the beginning of the game, you'll see that the Akizuki from the red team here came onto the cap and was able to secure the cap early, but instead of immediately turning around to go support A, he kind of came around and meandered here, maybe from early spotting. But I think ultimately it would have been better if he just immediately turned around and came in here, because you can see he's just a little bit late as this North Carolina pushes into the cap. He's losing a lot of health, and Akizuki just gets there right as he dies. Now, if this North Carolina had waited about here on this island, or if the Akizuki had been able to get there earlier, either of those two, I really think that the Akizuki could have provided smoke for that North Carolina, and they would have been able to apply much more pressure on this cap without losing that battleship, and that would have been really key.
Yeah, and just if you take a look at the deployment here, right? Because the situation that you actually have is you have an Akizuki here that is full HP, you have a Cossack here, and you have a flanking mines. And they were actually up against a Kid and a Cossack here. So they would have had definitely the potential to just use their superior firepower if they would have gone this way. But then the cap flip, they were too aggressive here. This is the move, right? If you just quickly jump back, how much HP within like 15 seconds that Akizuki lost just by being spotted, and these two DD in kiting positions able to farm him down. That's always the risk that you have with like an aggressive move. You might lose a lot of HP in competitive gameplay when you play against teams where everybody's on the same Discord, everybody's communicating, and they know roughly, or in many cases exactly what they're looking for. You will definitely pay for each mistake with a lot of HP. Yeah. So, very well done. And now it's, of course, the game for ISSB to win, because otherwise they're going to be out of this tournament. And the next map we're going to see is Sleeping Giant. And that's going to be very interesting on Tier 8 with the deployment of the different teams. What would you expect here?
Well, experience would tell me that you should expect a lot of French destroyers in this game from one team or the other. The A cap on this map is very, very difficult to get control of from the enemy team. So if you're the first to the A cap, it should theoretically be your cap for the rest of the game, because it only has 2 entrances and a lot of island cover. It makes it very difficult to assault if the enemy team already has control of it. Those French destroyers they're the fastest ships in the game, and therefore they're going to get there before anybody else.
Yes, so I'm also very curious to see what the teams are going to do here, and it's usually the fight for A, especially with this cap deployment, right? Because B and C is going to be easy to cap, and it's going to take the other team a very long time to actually get there. So a lot of the action is going to be happening around A, and it's very hard to cap A back from the enemy team. Now, do you think ISSB is still going to deploy a double battleship setup?
I'm not sure. On this map in particular.
I see the game's ready to go. We'll hand over. Sorry. I didn't see.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Game 2. In this Small Boat Navy versus Sharpshooters event here, best of 3. Interestingly enough, we have a carrier action here, as the Sharpshooters, Team Green, are bringing in a Shokaku, Alabama, a Baltimore, a Mines, and a Amalfi, a Lightning, and an Akizuki. Interesting choice on the Lightning. It's the first time we've seen this today.
I was just thinking that. I understand. We'll talk about why you might choose a Lightning versus a Cossack later. The thing with carriers is that usually, with the planes going up, you get a lot of early action. All right, well, from the south spawn, we're looking at Small Boat Navy. They are bringing Momofo Shows back in his Lexington, fronted by a Tirpitz of all things, Prinz Eugen, Amalfi, and Atago. No radar on this team. Cossack and Le Terrible. Now, Zaf, Small Boat Navy trying a tactic that we've seen other very experienced teams attempt. They're going to try and shove a French destroyer right up the middle into the A-cap on Sleeping Giant and dare the opposing team to stop it.
Mind you, while it's being detected by carriers, you already see that that summoned fighter just sitting there patrolling. And I mean, yeah, the question is who's going to have a shot on Le Terrible? The Amalfi and the Bama, maybe the Mines, and the Akizuki.
They're going to catch a glimpse of him as he makes the turn in. The Mines and the Akizuki both all ready for him. They do land some more damage, but nothing horribly catastrophic. The Amalfi salvo largely falls short, and Aragorn is now into the cap.
So it worked. It paid off.
For now
he just has to survive.
now he has to survive, because now, admittedly, now that he's in there, digging him out is a challenge, right? But however, one of the things that we've seen, we've seen King of the Sea teams at tier 10 attempt this strategy, but there's no carriers in King of the Sea. So you could almost bet that Aragorn is going to be just under constant, irritating aerial assault all game, and we'll see how he handles that.
Well, there's also the Baltimore that's heading towards the exit, possibly to try to... actually, look at both the Akazuki and Baltimore are heading towards the exits. They're going to trap him in here, and they're going to do what they can to get him out right away. Even the Shokaku's bringing his planes over to keep the terrible spotted for his team.
Yep. They're going to try. We're going to see the Akazuki definitely making for that entrance here along the 5 line. Looks like the Tarib expects this. He's dumping his torpedoes in that direction. And here come Momo's HE bombs from this Akazuki, Zath. Yeah, he's going to smoke up. He does not want to deal with those.
Yep. The only problem is he smoked, he stopped, and he's not maneuvering, so it's going to be relatively easy for those bombs to drop. And yep, they actually find him with a couple of hits.
Still gets a couple of hits in despite the lack of being able to see what he's dropping on.
Right, and that forces the DCP on Sea Jotun as the Shokaku's AP bombers are trying to do damage to the Le Terrible, but it's just overpen.
And they can overpen him, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Well, very quickly here, 3.5 minutes in, SBN has taken a very aggressive stance, getting onto A and C, starting to build that lead here.
Yep. Here comes movement from Sea Jotun's Akazuki. He's not gonna come up. Detected by those planes.
They can see each other now on the surface. It's gonna be a Tarib versus Akazuki gunfight here.
Yeah, but Terrible has support. Akazuki does not.
Yeah. Tarib getting the upper hand here, big time with his reload booster going, really hammering Sea Jotun down to 1100 HP.
Big mistake there by Jotun coming out there, but look at these torpedoes.
Well, this could be bad. Aragorn's got to maneuver carefully. Oh, he just swings his stern through.
And bombers on the Akazuki.
And there he goes.
Done.
Oh. Momo has been putting on an absolute clinic, and yet Sharpshooters answers right away with a kill on Flatulence Prince Eugen.
Yes, we missed that, but we're going to see that, I'm sure, in a little bit. But here's that replay of the bomb strike on Sea Jotun's Akazuki. Wow.
Now, I'm not sure how they got the Prince Eugen that low. He might have made a turn in front of Aldari's Baltimore, because the American Piercing would have done very, very mean things to him if he'd made that mistake.
Sure. I was also talking earlier about Shokaku's AP bombers, as possible he might have gone for the Eugen in that situation as well.
Possible as well. Looking like Aragorn might bail out of the cap. He is kind of lurking here towards mid.
Well, this is his opportunity.
Indeed, they're pushing Spades' Turpits right up the middle of the map, coming straight up the 6 line.
I think they're expecting the Baltimore and the mines to go into A, so they're trying to put him in a position to where he can shoot into A.
Very possibly. Momo times a brilliant torpedo strike on the Baltimore. He takes all 3 as Aldari turns into the cap there.
Oh,
well done. That was just brutal.
Painful.
Yeah, Momo just timed it perfectly. He just waited for Aldari to line up, and then he start the turn, and he came right on in.
And at that point, there's not much that Aldari could do about it.
No. Now, it does mean that Aldari is flipping the A-cap on behalf of Sharpshooters. I don't think they're going to get any resets on him. Spades put some shells out, maybe for trying for the reset, but didn't land any.
Yep. They got the cap. There it is.
Yep.
And now they can shoot at the Turpits with relative impunity, because I don't think the Turpits can overmatch Baltimore.
He cannot. He can overmatch the Mines, who is actually turning to give him a bit of a nice shot right there. Doesn't get much out of the fire he puts down there, though. Oh, once again, the Lex bombs on Baltimore. Yep. Goodness. Yep. Goodness. But this Turpits push, maybe a little ill-advised. He's got a Malfi torpedoes coming down from the north as well. He's going to take one of those.
Oh, he just finished taking some torpedoes from the Shokaku as well.
And here come two more.
Right.
Tirpitz not known for her anti-aircraft defenses, right? It's just not what the ship does well. She can't really take care of herself in that situation.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this play just gifted the enemy a Tirpitz. Here you go.
It does feel that way, and it didn't have to. I mean, the SBN did a really good job that aggressive push, picking up building a lead. They've traded evenly on ships so far, but it feels like now they're going to give up their battleship and not really get anything in return for it. And there it goes.
Yeah, that's a very important piece to lose, as it looks like another torpedo strike. There it goes, the Baltimore taken out by the Lexington.
Momo just continuing to put on a How to Lexington clinic here today, ladies and gentlemen. Just a privilege to watch.
Absolutely. Victory through air power, right?
Victory? Yeah, indeed. Air superiority, Seth. Air superiority.
Oh, goodness. As we watch that Tirpitz go down. Go ahead.
The drama at the A cap isn't over. Aragorn's La Tarib has looped all the way around the bottom of the cap, back all the way over to the 2 line, looking like he might try to bust back in from this direction as Momo continues to drop strikes on the mines in the A cap.
We just watched that rocket strike come in. You know, the additional machine gun prep it's harder to hit destroyers, but I'll tell you, anything that's stationary, pretty easy to hit. Aragorn now turning in because he realized the Maple Chan's mines has some shots on him over this little bit of the island.
Yeah, continuing to get...
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What do we call it, Zaf?
That's what I like to call my replays fake cover.
Yeah, the island there low enough that the mines can get shells over it. 9 minutes gone, still very much anybody's game. Only 20 points separating these two teams. SBN's lead nearly evaporated as Sharpshooters has held the A cap long enough. They've whittled it down. We'll have our first lead change in just a moment.
Yep, Le Terrible is still detected, so Maple Chan is looking for another shot.
Well, here comes Das Viking back with the AP bombs, just trying for the overpins. Aragorn low enough, the overpins might kill him.
Put enough holes through the ship, it'll sink, right?
You're exactly correct. Just like that, there was a hole up forward. As Momo answers with a torpedo strike with the Lex trying to come in and deal with Maplechan in the A cap.
And he's bringing his Lexington closer as well for his ship's anti-air to support his teammate.
I really like this play, Zath, and I like that Aragorn, not only did he drop fighters for Aragorn, Aragorn's he's staying in this general vicinity, but yeah, Momo bringing his Lex up. He's going to take some shells. There's an Alabama salvo coming in on him right now.
Uh-oh.
But it doesn't land. A lot of drama in the A cap. We haven't really looked at the other flank, Zath. Let's take a peek over here on the 8-7-8 line, as it looks as if SBN is kind of getting pushed a bit by this Lightning and this Amalfi. They've moved back up into a much more aggressive position than Semper Sushi was way up forward earlier, and now he's pulled back.
Yeah, Small Boat Navy was making a push up there, and then we saw some change of assets around. I think what the key was when the Tirpitz went down, it allowed Sharpshooters to flex their assets back towards the 8 line.
Yeah. When the Tirpitz went down, they basically called this whole flank off and was like, all right, guys, just hold what you got. We got to win at the A cap.
Yep. Look at all those fighter circles south of A.
Yeah, the Great Mariana's Turkey shoot over here at A, ladies and gentlemen. Maplechan under cover of both his fighter and a Shokaku fighter as Momo doesn't care, pushing home a bomber strike as some Amalfi shells come in, and he misses the bombs.
Maplechan.
The Amalfi shells still continuing to fall. Another salvo coming in. Can he land any of them? No, he doesn't. They're all astern. Oh,
wow.
Time's getting away, Zath. Time's getting away. Look at the clock. Sharpshooters is now up over 950 points. There's only 30 seconds. Aragorn's making his push. He's got his on the 3 line. On the 3 line, he's got his speed boost up. Lexington is going for the rocket strike now on Maplechan. They need this kill to extend the timer to give Aragorn a chance to get into the cap to flip the lead.
Rune of One out east is also under tremendous fire.
They get it. Oh! 2 quick kills. Oh my goodness.
That's huge.
2. That is huge. 2 quick kills. And just like that, SBN is back in the lead. And they don't even need the 8 cap anymore.
Nope. And now they're fixing to win in 48 seconds.
Oh my goodness, Sath, what a turn of events. Now, I missed that other kill. Who was it again?
That was the Amalfi and the Atago and the Cossack that were all working on the sharpshooters Amalfi that was stuck by
Oh my goodness.
Yep, and now we're watching that rocket strike come in from Momo on the mines, taking out Maple Chan. Brilliant CV play.
Such a privilege to watch games like this, Sath.
Absolutely.
These 2 teams, so good.
I think on the other side, what ultimately killed that Amalfi, he got stuck bow in, he was trying to reverse, and clearly there was some miscommunication with smoke rotation, because the Lightning was in the area. We know the Lightning's got quick reloading smoke, Amalfi's got its own smoke, so there has to have been some sort of miscommunication that allowed the Amalfi to stay spotted long enough for it to be killed.
Yeah. Well, SBN's going to take this in straight games. Well done to them. What a well-played series. I mean, sharpshooters, they didn't win a game in the series, but goodness gracious, they were incredibly either one of these games could have gone either way.
Oh, absolutely. These games have been a pleasure to watch. Hats off to both teams for entertaining their audience essentially, and making that concerted effort in this tournament.
Now, I will say, you and I talked about the carrier change, right? And we saw sharpshooters. They took a carrier this time. Obviously, they kind of learned their lesson. But they took the Shokaku. Do you feel like the Lex? We talked. Your recommendation was Lex. Do you feel like Lex would have been a better choice given they were up against that Tarib all game?
How many times did we see AP bombers trying to kill that late Tarib?
Yeah.
At least twice. At least twice.
Yeah.
If those were HE bombers, could have been very different.
Yep. Indeed. The American HE bombs they're a better utility tool. They impact everybody, right? Every ship you drop those on will feel it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Zath. Let's kick it back to the studio, guys. We'll see you in a few minutes while we go look for a game 3.
Sounds good.
Very well played here, and well, the win goes to SBN in a very, very close match there. It could have gone either way, but let's talk with Duke and discuss why it went in SBN's favor. What do you think? What was the deciding factor here?
Man, both teams, ISSB and SBN, played really, really well that game. We saw that SBN was able to take a really early A camp using the Terrible. ISSB, unfortunately, their Akizuki got a little bit too hungry for that A camp, and I think got caught in a pretty bad situation against that Le Terrible, and ended up losing that trade, which had a negative impact on them throughout the game, obviously losing a ship. But they did do a really good job at recovering at the A camp. They slowly worked down the Amalfi that SBN left on the flank, and they were able to get back into A and actually retake it because SBN hadn't fortified A well enough with just the Amalfi out there on the flank. Key mistake from which team was it? Had the Tirpitz. That would be
SBN.
SBN. Yeah. So SBN, I think the Tirpitz was a mistake trying to push that Tirpitz that early into the game. Trying to reserve his health and wait for opportunities to shoot at the cruisers as they might try to push into the A camp, I think would have been more beneficial to them. As far as really what decided the game, it was at the very, very end. The Le Terrible was able to survive through hellfire and back, and that really put ISSB at a disadvantage because they weren't able to finish that Le Terrible. And then the constant pressure from the SBN Amalfi and the SBN aircraft carrier on the mines in the ACAP were able to whittle him down. And unfortunately, ISSB's Amalfi over at the BC flank got caught in between the Cossack and the Atago. And I think that's ultimately what really cost the game for ISSB there. That Amalfi maybe had been playing more of a kiting position and been more cautious. I think it would be very close, but it's possible they still would have won this.
Yeah, both teams played really, really well, but they also made their share of mistakes, right? And with those teams, they will punish it. And what I found very interesting to see is how both of the teams leverage their battleships. So while SBN's battleship, the Tirpitz, was kind of like pushed up unnecessarily to support that angle, and kind of then got caught up. And on that map, in the middle of the map on Sleeping Giant, there's no way to turn out. Like you committed, there's no way you can actually fall back, and it just got nuked. But what I found very interesting to see is that the Alabama, up until the end of the battle, was very stationary. And in terms of like gameplay on that level, you kind of have to share the tanking with both the Amalfi and the DD going up actually very, very close to the enemy. The battleship was kind of disconnected, maybe due to like what they saw what's happening to the Tirpitz. Is like, we want to be careful, but you kind of have to work a little bit better together on that flank to get the most out of it. And it was a little bit too aggressive. But what I want to highlight is SBN's way of how they actually managed to put all of the assets in the last minute in the right place to be able to flip it. Like, it's very easy. It's very easy to lose a match like this by not being there in the last 30, 40, 50 seconds, because it was actually ISSB game to lose. And they did, because SBN was pushing the right things at the right time. ISSB's CV, for example, at the end of the battle, was actually focusing not on the A cap and trying to get the Le Terrible, which was the easy, let's say the lowest HP target, not the easiest target to kill. Obviously, it's not very easy to hit that, but just very, very impressive to see how they managed to, from SBN side, to say, okay, we need to kill that mines and we need to get another kill, because otherwise, points wise, it's not going to be our game. And having all of this come together in the last minute of the match. I see that we do have the replay ready. Let me just quickly open it here for myself as well. But this is actually something we can just see here when we let it play. The very early cap here, and this is what we discussed right before the match, right? What you highlighted is that having a French destroyer gives you the opportunity and the advantage of speed, being able to just shove it into A. And it's not easy to just dislodge this. And we can see when they try to move the Akisuki in here that ultimately it's very hard to get people into that cap once it's capped. So that's just something that, well, kind of worked out as we discussed it. But what really found interesting is in the way that the mines and the Baltimore, together with the CV, just saying, okay, we lost the Akisuki, but we'll find our way back into this cap by just going for the Prince Eugen, withering him down, pushing the Amalfi away, because he cannot do that much, especially if they're bow on, and then pushing both the Balti and the mines into the cap. And conveniently, the Tirpitz was actually showing full broadside during that time, so they can also kind of get an advantage in the game by taking out the enemy battleship. So I think this was actually quite well done by them. But then we see that the constant pressure on the mines here, and the Le Terrible going back in and flipping the match. So yeah, really well played to SBN, but also to ISSB. But SBN definitely showed here why they're going to move on to the next stage of the tournament. Since we're talking about the tournament, Mr. Conway can maybe show us the current stage of the tournament, because we're here in the round of 32, and we can see which teams actually managed to advance to the next stage. So we can see here in Group A, Blue Falcons, they were actually, if you see there the team name by, that just means that the other team either dropped out or wasn't available. So the highest ranking teams from the last training sessions were actually seeded to advance. So this happened to Blue Falcons. Then we have AMD users winning against the wrong buttons. The Flying Philosophers, we actually saw together, right? Moving on against the Hateful Eight. And the Sine Waves managed to kick the Sea Dragons back into the sea. And what else do we have? Team 8, the Fire Kitchen, and then Team 19 and IFHE moving on to the next stage for the playoffs. So that's going to be very interesting to see. And do we also have Group B, Mr. Conroy?
I mean, Group B is still playing.
Yeah, but do we have like an already, like, okay, no update.
When it's ready.
When it's ready. It's ready when it's ready. Okay. Good.
By the way, let me just point out, we are going to have a game 3 to watch. It's going to be Help versus AASLT. Help is Where's the W key, and AASLT is Screaming Eagles.
Screaming Eagles against, help me find the W button. Okay, that sounds like an interesting matchup. So let's take a look at the maps they already played and the ship bans as soon as that is ready.
As soon as that is ready, yes.
So Mr. Conway is working on this. Don't forget, guys, this is today the qualification stage for the actual finals that will be broadcasting here on this channel on August 8th. So you can already mark this in your calendar if you like today's broadcast and you would like to see the final stage of this tournament. So come back and tune back in on that date. While waiting for the other teams to be set up, was there anything super surprising for you to see today in the matches?
Super surprising? Well, of course, the 4 Atagos versus 4 Prince Huygens was a good and fun match. Apart from that, I really did like, and I can't say it enough, ISSBs in just the 2 games ago in Warriors Path, their double battleship strat. They played it very well, and I really like to see that, and I hope we get to witness more of that. I hope we get to see more success from that kind of strategy, because I do like to see just something new and fresh thrown in the mix and change things up.
Yeah, and it's really refreshing to see, because all of these teams, they're not like super experienced clans. They might have very experienced players, but they're still just mixed together, right, as we said in the beginning of this broadcast. Please keep in mind that all of these teams were drafted. All of the teams actually have a 50% rate at least in terms of veterans in their teams. And that means they only had very limited time to actually prepare and to kind of work together as a team and find that chemistry and the time to test all of these strategies against other times and figure it out. And Tier 8 has a lot of variety in terms of gameplay, in terms of ships available. And we can see in the amount of ships that we've seen today, we've seen a lot of different ships. It's not like there's one predominant ship. There's certain ships that are very popular, as you will always see in competitive gameplay, right? Ships that feature Hydra, for example, like the DDs that feature Hydra, that very good for going for caps, or very fast DDs to put that early pressure on a cap and kind of getting that early advantage, and also making it harder, for example, for the enemy CV to hit the DD are very popular. But in terms of, for example, cruisers, a huge variety in terms of the cruisers that we saw. And I have to say as well that for me, my favorite game so far was just in terms of setup, not in terms of like pure action, but in terms of setup, was seeing a team fielding 4 Prince Huygens and 4 Atagos. Actually, kudos to the guy who brought in Atago B to kind of make it less obvious that it's 4 Atagos. But to see that, okay, on this level, we will try to bring this setup, and they kind of still manage to make it work, at least the Atago team. Because otherwise, I usually, on Tier 8, you see like a lot of variety in terms of maximum 2 cruisers of one kind that the teams are actually deploying. And here I see that we do have now actually the ship bans and the maps. And I do have to say, I really like the logo here of help. Where's the W key? Very nicely done. So we do see interesting bans here. We see a Shokaku ban. We see a Le Terrible ban. The Kid and the Vladivostok. A lot of strong ships. What do you think is the reason for banning the Shokaku?
I was actually just thinking to myself, what is the reason for banning the Shokaku? Personally, I can't think of one in particular. It's not a bad aircraft carrier, but banning Shokaku doesn't necessarily give you any specific strategic advantage as opposed to banning another cruiser or another battleship, for example. Most of the CVs at Tier 8 are pretty equitable, I think, and it'd be very difficult to ban them in such a way that it would actually cripple the enemy team's strategy. But
yeah, I think the main reason that I could think of is just kind of making it harder for the enemy CV to strike cruisers or particular battleships, in terms of like using like kind of like trying to ban AP bombs from Shokaku. But we'll have to see how that is actually going to work out for them. But it's just interesting to see, like Le Terrible, we just saw what a fast French destroyer can actually do. The Le Terrible is a very fantastic, like really good DD, specifically for that reason, plus other benefits that French DDs give you, for example, their damage saturation that they have for the different modules. And then we have the Vladivostok. Not surprising, very strong battleship on the tier, even though we've seen a lot of Alabamas and North Carolinas. So I feel that Vladivostok might be a good band, but on the other hand, there's a lot of competition on tier 8 in terms of battleships that can nose on, tank, and still dish out a significant amount of damage. So yeah, interesting bands. We'll have to see how both of these teams are trying to adapt to this. And the last map that they're actually going to play is the map North. And we already saw this map. What would you expect the teams to do here to get to the C cap?
To get to the C cap, well, you need to set up at least one radar ship. There's two to three common positions you might try to put a radar ship. One position would be trying to enter or get near the C cap on the what we like to call affectionately the Dorito Island, which is the triangular island in the middle of the map. It's a very risky position to get into, and it usually means getting a cruiser up to one of the islands next to it, and then slowly waiting for the right opportunity and moving over to that triangular island next to C cap. The other two common positions are there is a small island north and south of the C cap. North.
You missed the comment. At least we were told it's North.
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah. So because this is Northern Waters, which is a very different map.
It
Still
is
fun to
North.
play. Still fun to play. And it has the word North in it, but it's the wrong North. So there we go. Here we go.
Yes, so there are, as you can see, there's two small islands above and below the sea cap. It's very common to try and put a radar cruiser there. At this tier, you might see that radar cruiser accompanied by something like a smoke DD in order to protect it, because it is really easy to catch cruisers. And the alternative is to try and put them on the position on the very far, I think it's the 8-9 line, right? On those islands on the right side of C. You can put a cruiser on the top or bottom of those, depending, of course, on which team you're on. And then it has the opportunity to push around on that 9-10 line flank if that seems like, a good play to make.
Yeah, overall, like I really like the cap positions on this map that they're going to play, because A and B are not that far from each other, while on other maps they were way more secluded. If you talk, for example, about Sleeping Giant, it would have taken a significant amount of time to get to the enemy home cap, basically. While here they're actually quite close, and teams might try to, maybe while the enemy team is focusing on C, maybe try to overpower the enemy home cap. We'll just have to see. I'm very curious to see this. And with tier 8, all of the ships are going to be closer to each other than, for example, on tier 10. So we'll have to see how the teams are going to play this. I think teams are still readying up, so we still have a little bit of time to talk about the different ships they might be bringing here. Are there any specific ships you would expect after seeing the ship bands, seeing the map, that you think are going to be very well suited here?
Right. Well, we have seen a lot of Amalfis tonight, and I think we'll probably see that again probably in kiting positions on the 1, 2, 3 line around the A and B cap. It's a very strong ship for kiting because, of course, especially with aircraft carriers in the game, it can smoke in order to fall off very quickly, and its SAP shells can be very, very damaging. So I expect to see some Amalfis on the AB flank, maybe some other kiting cruisers as well. I'll be interested to see if we encounter another AB push strat or not. I don't know if it's really what's best in this meta, and especially with Vladivostok band, I'd be hard pressed to find another tier 8 battleship that can really pull that off. But who knows?
Yeah, that's for me. Like I always try to find like, okay, if I would be in their shoes, and I know roughly what ships are banned, what kind of strategy might you be trying to use? And since these teams probably haven't scrimmaged against each other very often, they might not know what the enemy team is bringing, so they just have to rely on their own strategy, right? And kind of think about what would work. And yeah, it's always very interesting to see, for example, Italian cruisers, the kind of things they bring to the table in terms of the package. Because Italian cruisers, they don't really provide you with radar, but they do give that combination of very, very strong performance against DDs once they're spotted. We've seen these in the first 2 matches. The smoke, plus also the ability to torp if you get into that range, but also using that smoke not only to kind of get away from this V, but being able to kind of sneak in a cap maybe later on. Because the amount of radars that we have on tier 8 and the ranges, of the radars are very, very limited compared to, for example, tier 10. So it is definitely an interesting ship to bring here. And I'm curious to see how many radars the teams are going to bring. We haven't really seen Cleveland's that much. And what do you think is the reason for that?
I think the biggest pain point for Cleveland is it does have relatively short radar range compared to something like Chapia or Talon. And that combined with its poor shell arcs, depending on the situation, they can be poor, I should say, make it a pretty difficult ship to use effectively. So generally, you'd probably want something like a Chapayev over a Cleveland. Superior range, superior shell velocity, and longer range radar.
Yep. Yeah. Even though I think Cleveland is a very strong ship to bring, but it's going to be in very specific positions.
Yes.
This is something you will always see in competitive, that while ships might be really strong, for example, in random battles or ranked battles, and Mr. Conway.
Hello. If I may join you from the disembodied, like voice from the off. It seems
Mr. Conway's here talking.
It seems there was an unfortunate miscommunication in the background, and streamers and casters are indeed in a different game. I'm going to line that up for you very soon, but we may be in for a little surprise.
Okay. So that's very interesting. Are we just going to jump into that match?
Let me try and find the information. Maybe I can give it to you.
Okay, this is going to be very interesting if we're just jumping live into a match that we now talked about, but it's not the same match that we just talked about. But chat, also let us know what you find interesting about this tournament, and like how you feel, for example, about tier 8, 5 maps, and ship banning. Like for me, this is always a very interesting topic because we didn't have it for a very long time in most of the tournaments. And it's actually something that came predominantly from the NA cluster, where this was very popular already in early King of the Seas, and it took a little bit longer for the rest of the regions to jump on this. And I love it. It makes it much harder for teams to always pick their favorite ships and kind of have to prepare a much broader setup in terms of what they can bring. But yeah, chat, let us know what you think. What's your take on ship banning?
Well, I've been a supporter from the start. I can understand those who might be opposed to the ship bans. They put a lot of effort and hours into practicing and preparing their strategies, and faced with the prospect of having that strategy taken out from under them just by having a single ship banned can be very frustrating. But at the same time, I think the most skilled players in the game are also the most adaptable players, and the most skilled strategists are the most adaptable strategists. And so I think we'll find the best teams will always still come out on top, especially so with the ship bans, because it proves that all the players on that team, and especially the captains of that team, have to be very good and quick at figuring out how to play a map.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always think it's like a cool option for teams to also kind of throw like a rock into the enemy kind of setup. It's like, hey, maybe banning something that people would not expect to be banned, right? And just say like, oh, that might be something interesting the enemy team didn't think about. A Righteous Fury actually says in chat, try to talk wargaming into using ship bans for 2 years now. Well, now they like it. It's not just talking us into it. The cool thing is that we actually have it by now, even in clan battle seasons, that after a certain amount of time, we will switch or change certain rules to make it a little bit more interesting. And then also, of course, it's about the competitive scene being on board with this, because all of these tournaments are community run and not actually organized from our side. So this is the map we're going to jump into, Mr. Conway. This is the match, yeah? Okay, perfect. So we're going to see ALNS against TAF 3, where we have ship bans Kaga, Alabama, Baltimore, and Talon. Very different ships compared to the last match that were banned here. And the map we're going to see is North. So at least what we talked about in terms of the map, that's going to stay the same. But the ship bans are different. No, Mr. Cole? Killing me here, man. You're killing me here. So we're waiting for the teams to ready up. Yeah, it's true. I see it. It's definitely it's Warrior's Path, right? Exactly. I just saw it because we have a little preview from the training room, and those maps didn't fit. So yeah, so, North. You can disregard what we said about North.
To give you some context in the joy of organizing, running these tournaments, we were supposed to cast this other game, but then both team captains complained about being streamed with no delay. And instead of going my route, which is to tell them to suck it up, and we're going to do it anyway, the organizers, our helpers, said, "Okay, we'll find you a different game," and that threw a spanner in the works. But there we go. Countdown's running. We'll be with them shortly.
So yeah, Warriors Path, and the match is starting. So we have like 45 seconds before the match starts. So we'll just have to see what the teams are going to do here. I don't know any of these teams, so they will just have to surprise us with what they can do. But I can see already a difference in team setup. One team bringing 2 DDs, the other one only 1. So we'll hand it over to Lord Sath and Sea Raptor to talk about this match. Do you have any favorite in this matchup? Do you know the teams?
I haven't researched these teams, so oh well.
Okay,
We'll see
so
what happens.
we'll just see what's going to happen. Chat, I hope you're going to enjoy this match with a completely different map and completely different ship bands and completely different ships. And it's still going to be fun. I know this. So have fun with this match, and we'll see you on the other side. Enjoy.